Today I'm delighted to be joined by the MP for Nelson, Nick Smith, Nick for Nelson, just in case anyone missed it on any of the signs coming in, and also by our tertiary education spokesperson Simeon Brown and Louise Upston, who is our social development and social investment spokesperson. So can I thank everybody here involved in the Mahi Tahi CoLab, which is a joint venture between the Chamber of Commerce, Economic Development for the Council, and also NMIT. It's a sort of collaboration which would be very difficult to come across should the current government's plans to centralise everything in terms of politics ever come into being. It is the sort of innovation that we expect to see in a provincial New Zealand, with everyone working together to actually bring about the best qualifications for students, and so that they can effectively work in business straight after they finish their degrees or diplomas, and actually find that they have a career that's really worth having. So thank you for having us here today. So today we are very much putting a big focus. One of our pillars of our policy is around reskilling and retraining our workforce. So we will invest in infrastructure. We've made that very plain. Infrastructure around roading, infrastructure around hospitals, schools, infrastructure in the technology area, and that we want people to be able to keep more of what they earn. Our tax policy is very focused on giving back $3,000 in essentially a year for our average earners, but also in making sure that businesses have a real incentive to buy and invest in plant and machinery that's going to help productivity and help them employ other people as well, by changing the depreciation rates so that it will be more effective and more efficient. We are also, for those of you who love the RMA, the bad news for you is it's going, we're scrapping it, and we are going to have instead an Environmental Standards Act and a Planning and Development Act, so that we can get rid of the RMA. The horror story I've heard today is of central city space, wanting to put in a temporary car park, pages and pages full of submissions, in the end just give up. It's just too hard. Personally, I thought you just knock down the fence and let people park for free, but you know, apparently that would be wrong too. And the other big thing we're doing is doubling the size of our tech sector. So we have a tech sector both in high-end engineering and also IT specialists, which is worth about $8 billion of exports. It's an enormous part of our economy, gets very little coverage, but it is one where the jobs are well paid. It's very, very good area for us to be in, and we can double that. So we've outlined in the past just how we could do that. But today I'm announcing National's reskilling and retraining our workforce package. The key announcement is Skill Start, and National's Business Start and Job Start policies, which we've already announced, are all about getting people into work and getting people able to set up their own businesses and giving them a hand to do that. So Skill Start, they will help to retrain people. Skills Start will provide $4,000 additional funding to training providers for every Kiwi that they get into work. That is huge. So as we know, people can get qualifications, doesn't necessarily mean they get a job from them. Here's a real incentive for the providers of education to get their graduates into work. We are investing $120 million in Skill Start, and that will support 30,000 Kiwis into new careers. This funding creates a very strong incentive and signal to training providers. In other words, we want you focused on things that are going to get people into work. We want you focused on stuff that matters. Sure. And that's what we want it on. No messing around, just stuff that's going to get jobs. The $4,000 incentive will only be paid where the trainee is able to successfully find a new job. Skill Start incentivises providers to go beyond training, also careers preparation and helping people into work. We know some providers already do this, others talk about it but actually don't deliver, and this is a real incentive to deliver. Other policies around this that I'm announcing today is an entrepreneurship training program called Small Business Builder. This will give experienced Kiwis who have lost their jobs business management training and mentoring to help them start out. And thirdly, National will also improve access to business management training for people who already own a small business, and that's a Small Business Accelerator Fund to provide training for Kiwis who own a business but they want to grow it. These three programs are a comprehensive approach to helping more Kiwis retrain no matter what their circumstance. I'm also targeting programs to support unemployed Kiwis back to work through the COVID crisis. We're very aware that Stats New Zealand has advised us that around 180,000 New Zealanders expect that they may not have a job this time next year. We already know that Treasury has forecast that at least 100,000 New Zealanders are due to lose their jobs in the next couple of years. That is a terrible number, or terrible numbers, for us to accept, and it's very important we get people into work as soon as possible. So National will expand our highly successful Skills and Jobs Hub model to connect unemployed Kiwis with the significant job opportunities that will be created through our major national infrastructure investments. First introduced as part of the Christchurch rebuild, these hubs set up training facilities and wraparound services at the centre of areas where there are sizable projects which create jobs and opportunities. We'll establish under 25 job coaches at Work and Income to develop intensive, personalised path to work plans for young unemployed Kiwis. We will undo the expensive and distracting restructuring of the vocational education system, giving autonomy back to our regional institutes of technology and polytechnics. We will cut and stop the rove reforms because they are not in the best interests of New Zealanders, and they're certainly not in the best interests of our regions. So they will be gone. If you want to say by dinner time, would probably be the best one for that one. So National has a comprehensive plan to grow out of COVID and to help Kiwis into new careers. We are investing in delivering new skills, supporting people back into the workforce, and lifting the capability of our small business owners. We will get a huge payback as a country if we invest in business, and the best way of doing that is let Kiwis get on and do what they need to do, give them the skills and a bit of assistance along the way. Happy to take any questions with our team.
What type of industries do you see people being trained up to go into these jobs? Because under your policy, they have to be working within a year?
Well, there's loads of jobs, for instance, right now in the tech sector. There's no reason at all why people can't train into some of those jobs, but it's also important that we let people know that the expectation when they go to a polytechnic to learn something, which obviously, you know, people are trying to do it to get jobs, is that there needs to be jobs available to them. So that is really important. And Louise might want to add to that.
Yes, so the primary sector is an obvious example. A few years ago, there was a 50,000 shortage of those working in the primary industries. An example for me locally is a 2-week course for people learning how to drive heavy farm equipment like tractors to do some of the immediate jobs contracting. That's the sort of example of a short course that a training provider could come up with, and we could see people into jobs straight away.
Is it $4,000 no matter how long the course is? Sorry, is it $4,000 no matter how long the course is?
Yep.
Yes, no, that's right. That's right. How many people
$4,000
would you?
for 2 weeks.
Well, you think about what's the cost of leaving people on a dole? What's the cost? It's huge. And it's not just the financial cost, it's the cost to people of feeling that they have nothing to do and they have nothing to add, and that's a terrible thing. I would rather, as part of our social investment policy, always look to see how we can help people.
What level of qualification would they be required to get? Like a certificate enough, or what would it be? So it'll need to be SAC level 3 or above. So what we're trying to do is ensure that people get back into work as quickly as possible. That's the purpose of this policy. We don't want people staying on the benefit, and we want to incentivise training providers to be working alongside industry so that the skills that they're providing are what industry needs.
$120 million already been accounted for in your fiscal plan?
Yes, it has.
We're disestablishing the workforce development councils, which is part of the review of vocational education. That's worth $230 million. None of that's been spent by this current government. It's wasteful money. We're going to allocate it into actually getting skills to people who've lost their jobs so we can get them back into work.
Why disestablish those when that's exactly what they're meant to do, is find the skills in those regions for those work industries in those regions that need to be?
Well, the workforce development councils haven't even been set up by this government. They said they were going to get them done by October. It's October in a couple of days. They then said December. Now it's probably going to be next year. They're replacing our industry training organisations, which do a great job giving skills to people on the ground. We're going to work alongside industry and allow industry to be in charge of industry training, not having the government telling what industry should be doing.
How many people would you expect? To go through this asking?
Well, it's got funding for up to 30,000 people to be able to be placed into jobs. So this is an important, significant investment into retraining, getting people back into work.
And how long would they just stay in work for the
So we've said they need to stay beyond the 90-day trial.
So, real job.
What do you make of Labor pledging to keep Tier 1 point open for 3+ years?
Oh, it's so flattering having the lead of the Labor Party copy our plan. I think that it's probably very late to the party, aren't they? Very late.
Does Paul Goldsmith need to take some responsibility for national school polling?
No, I don't believe at all that we have, I don't believe in your assessment at all. In fact, our polling, our internal polling, which we do every day, is showing that we are tracking up. And what I'd say is this, is that if people understand that if they vote Labor, they vote for the Greens.
How problematic is it that some of your most senior MPs like Paul Goldsmith are out on these numbers?
No, what's really clear is that we have a plan, a financial plan, which an economic plan. We've got nothing from the Labor Party, nothing at all. It's very easy to pick holes in other people's plans if you don't have your own. I haven't seen anything from the Labor Party. Do they have one?
Why do you think that your skill start is better than the flexible
What speaks to that?
Well, we're focusing on getting people back into work, and what we know is that there's a lot of people out there who will need training and short training courses, so they can get back into work as soon as possible. And we also want to incentivise our training organisations to actually be working alongside industry in that. We don't want to have big wasteful money going into new bureaucracies. We actually want to get our training providers getting it back into work.
that Labor are already doing,
No.
or wanting to do under different names.
Well, they're talking a big game in terms of our vocational education. They're spending hundreds of millions of dollars reshaping the vocational education sector when actually we're in the middle of a pandemic and economic crisis. We need to be training people to get into jobs, not talking about who should be paid what in terms of chief executive salaries and all sorts of other things. That's what they're focused on.
Just remind me how many chief executives they've got for their new...
Oh, there's over 20 people with the title chief executive in the new NZIST mega polytech that they're trying to set up. They've spent 1.6 million on consultants, 2.3 million on the CEO and the 6 DCEs salaries. Is that actually getting people back into work, or is that providing 7 cushy jobs for their mates?
Benedict had a question.
The talk of a trans-Tasman bubble again with Australia, parts of Australia, could be in the next few weeks, or as Prime Minister said before Christmas. How likely do you think that is?
Well, I think it will be a decision that's made based on what the health advice is, and I think also is that you'll probably find it's faster than maybe some people have thought. And it's very much, I know that the Australians are very keen, Australian Prime Minister is very keen to have a trans-Tasman bubble with the South Island in particular, and I think that whether that's from New South Wales or Queensland, but no one's talking about Victoria at the moment.
Do you like that idea?
Oh, I think it's an idea that may well be able to be done. I think too, as long as people have tests before they get on a plane, a negative result, and we have COVID tracing and all those things, it is entirely possible. But let's put it this way, let's make sure that everyone's safe. Benedict had a question.
Do you have any thought of splitting that payment between trainee and the provider at $4,000?
Look, no, this is about incentivising training providers to work closer with industry. It's something which is really critical for the trainee. This is about getting them a job, and that's the most important thing for people who have just lost their jobs.
And don't forget that they don't get that $4,000 unless the person gets and retains a job past the 90-day period. So it's absolutely success-based.
It's not an incentive for people towards, low-skilled jobs. jobs or make jobs.
Well, they're not going to do it because people won't want to do that. They're getting a qualification. People talk about, things like how to drive a tractor, as Louise said, or how to do various other things. These are only, people think they're unskilled until they actually try to do them. These are skilled jobs these days. Yep.
Do you think that Kiwis are ready for a advanced days in bubble?
I think a lot of New Zealanders may not be, and I think that people need to know that they are safe, but I also know that in the South Island, I don't think they've had one case yet that hasn't just come through a MIQ and been caught there. So, I think too, is people need to understand too, is do they want to stay entirely Fortress New Zealand forever? I think we can keep COVID out. I think we can do a good job on it, but you need a single border agency, as we have promoted, and we would put in place within 100 days to do that. And what you can't do is down this track of having multiple ministers and nobody seems to be in charge. And they throw.
If you want to get the Aussies into the South Island, though, how would you prevent them from going to the North Island?
Well, there is that issue, isn't it? And that'll be something a border agency would need to take care of.
On your mental health policy,
Yep.
this morning, why did you commit to a zero suicides?
Yeah, because I know that it's a really big ask, but I think for anyone who's had family members who have suicided or those who have attempted suicide themselves, I think they would expect us to try to do something that is almost impossible, but can be done. I mean, mental health is, in most cases, preventable, but it's also treatable. And I think that people expect us to take this very seriously. Mental health is one of the biggest health issues that I believe we have to deal with in New Zealand, because in terms of a virus, or COVID virus and things, we can take steps around that. But mental health affects every family that I'm aware of, every family, every strata of society, every ethnicity, everybody, and we need to take it seriously. So yeah, it's a big call. But I tell you what, if we don't try to get zero suicides, we'll just keep meandering along at the moment. I mean, I can't remember the numbers at the moment. It's about 700 last year. These are awful statistics. Twice the road toll. And you think about the huge efforts put into the road toll.
Jonathan Coleman, when he was health minister, refused to set that.
Yeah, well, that's his. He's not with us. I tell you, I take it very seriously, which is why I took it extremely seriously when police needed mental health workers in their custody suites in the main centres. And I am disgusted that the current administration allowed those staff to be removed. That is a terrible indictment on the current government, because they allowed that to happen. When we were in government, the DHBs had to work with the police to make sure that they had frontline people there with the police. That's where some of these manifestations of mental health, the most serious ones, are going to occur in those custody suites. You can't keep ignoring this.
Just back on your policy, do you feel the weight of your MP's jobs in future? Is there any potential job losses on you?
What a silly question. Not at all. I am very, very committed to making sure that we get the best possible result for our country, and the best possible result for our country is a national-led government, and I am working every single day to make sure it happens. You won't see me taking hours off in a day just to do nothing or other. You'll see me out working every day, and I expect that from all our MPs and all our candidates, because we are committed to what's best for New Zealand.
Where are your internal polling numbers?
What's that?
Where are your internal polling?
Significantly higher than some that we've seen lately from other organisations. A lot higher, thank you.
On the skills policy, you want to roll out a job coach for under 25s
Yeah.
on the job seeker benefit. Could you sort of elaborate? What does that look like? Is that a coach in every WINS office across the country, or is that just a couple of...
Yeah, Louise.
So unfortunately we've seen the number of unemployed under 25 double in the last couple of years, so we're seeing a larger number. And also statistically, the earlier you go onto benefit, the longer you stay on it. So we want to make sure there's really good coverage across the country. And the other thing is a specialised youth coach who will be relatable and accessible to young people. And it's not just about getting them, so it's a very intensive path to work plan that they will create, recognising that they'll have different challenges, different young people. and then support into employment and also support post-employment. So making sure that any of the challenges they might face sticking in that job are also resolved. And we've had a lot of success in that previously with initiatives that we put in place, like supporting offenders into work. So we're using successful models to make sure that young people have a solid plan, they get a job and they stay in it.
And so is that one in every WINS office across the country?
Yeah, and if it's a WINS office that's got a larger number of young people who are currently unemployed, they would need more.
And would you make the money management part of that if they fail to meet obligations? Would you require that and make future benefit payments conditional on that?
Yeah, so what we have put in our discussion document and recommitted to is that there'd continue to be obligations for people to be taking the steps in their own life. So for example, for a young person, they will have a path to work and we would expect they would be taking steps, going to interviews, being available, preparing, for example. And one of the things we'd said we would look at is extending money management to under 25s if they didn't fulfil those obligations. Unlike labour, we think it's really important that there are responsibilities for the job seeker, not just the taxpayer, in supporting them into employment.
Exactly.
Back on Tiwai's point, haven't Labour and National basically buckled to Rio Tinto's album?
Do you know what? I think it's one of those things you look at and say, do you want to go and tell 2,260 New Zealanders that they don't have a future? And I think that when you're dealing with a situation as well with all these New Zealanders, around 400 losing their jobs every day, I don't think we can afford as a country to just say, let's all play hardball today. But the other thing is too, if you care about climate change, and many New Zealanders do, that it is important to understand that Tiwai Point produces aluminium from renewable energy. And that is not true for most of the other energy, aluminium created in the world. So if you're going to have the cleanest, greenest aluminium in the world, might as well come from New Zealand. So I think there are several reasons why we should assist. The assistance doesn't mean to say that you're buckling, it's about understanding that we're dealing with a reality here.
Just back on the Trans-Tasman bubble,
Sure.
to open by Christmas, would you go reserved for summer?
Normally, if we go to somewhere in the summer, we'll normally pop over to Samoa, and that's if they let people in. But they are obviously, they're COVID-free in Samoa. And also, they are requiring people to have a negative COVID test before they get on a plane, something that our current government in New Zealand hasn't been able to work out how to do. I think the Samoans won't want to have one with us until we can make sure we have a proper border protection agency in place and we can guarantee people being COVID-free when they go to Samoa. So let's just wait and see. But I think it's going to have to wait until we have a proper border protection agency in place.
If you were Prime Minister today and
Yes.
everything was as equal as it is today,
Yep.
would you feel safe opening a bubble with Australia tomorrow?
I don't think you can say it with Australia. I think what you can say is that there's some work that could be done around certain states of Australia. And as we know, some of those states have themselves been operating a border type policy with other states. So I think we need to be very careful about it. But I think the safest place would be in the Pacific, actually, if you're going to look for anywhere.
And a decision such as that, should they be left until after the election so it's not made by the government?
Well, I don't know. I think governments seem to want to do all sorts of things before an election, opening things, announcing things, doing all sorts of stuff that you might think should be waiting until a new government's in place. But look, I just think people should be able to know what they're voting for, and if they're voting for an opened border, then they need to know what they're voting for. Thank you.
Can I again thank everybody for present, particularly the Chamber of Commerce that have hosted us, Ali. Can I thank the business representatives? Can I particularly thank the exciting announcement? One of the difficulties for Nelson is that they have noted a higher increase in youth unemployment in this region than any other in New Zealand, so really vital. And also we are very, very parochial and proud of NMIT, which was rated as the best polytech in New Zealand in 2017.
Oh, well
and
done.
welcome the announcement that it will continue. There's a little bit of history. you're standing on land that was paid for by Nelson ratepayers to establish this polytechnic 117 years ago, and there's a very strong feeling in the region that it should not be nationalised. So again, thank you to our hosts, and particularly thank you to Leader Judith and spokespeople Louise and Simeon for coming to this.
Thank you very much. Well done, team.
Thank you very much.
Well done.